crux of this is a question, did he knowingly give the Russians a heads up about sanctions that were coming from the Americans while he was still a civilian, before he was serving in a government post? Does that explain why the Russians just did not react to otherwise strong sanctions? Rachel Maddow is among those joining us by calling in. Rachel, your reaction to the story, you kind of covered incrementally tonight as it was chugging along.
Yeah, and I did not know that this was going to result, Brian, in him being out this evening. It's a remarkable event. This is 3.5 weeks into this new administration. National Security Advisor is a very, very difficult job, and people deal with very sensitive matters, and there have been, some presidents have gone through a lot of them. I was just looking back at the Reagan era. Bud McFarlane pled guilty to charges with regard to the Iran-Contra affair in 1988. He was later pardoned. His successor was John Poindexter, who was convicted on multiple felonies in that scandal, and later had those reversed on appeal. National Security Advisor is a delicate, difficult job, but to lose one not even 3.5 weeks into the new administration, and without a real sense that we know whether other shoes might drop, whether this might end up being a criminal matter, it's just almost unbelievably dramatic, Brian.
General Flynn was an interesting case. Our own Barry McCaffrey had at various times called General Flynn perhaps the leading intelligence officer of his generation, but also retired four-star General Barry McCaffrey did admit that he hated seeing General Flynn lead that lock-her-up chant at the GOP convention, and that, to coin a phrase, his methods had perhaps become unsound. General Flynn, Rachel, was not like a lot of the generals we have come to know who have been these kind of scholar warriors, the people who go on to great Ivy League institutions and get graduate degrees, perhaps after going to West Point, after achieving their military rank. He was a specialist. He was an intel guy most of his adult life.
And a very unusual and interesting and distinguished career in terms of his time in uniform. As you know, Brian, when General Stanley McChrystal in Iraq had such incredible military success with the way he really radically changed JSOC and the special operators in Iraq and the way they were going after al-Qaeda in Iraq, Flynn was a big part of that. Flynn was a big part of McChrystal's endeavors in Afghanistan until that came to a quick end after a scandalous article in Rolling Stone magazine written by Michael Hastings, which resulted in a resignation by Stan McChrystal. And he's been involved in a lot of important military victories and also in some scandal. When his first job out of operational intelligence work in the theater of war was running the Defense Intelligence Agency, and by all accounts that was a disaster. He really was pushed out, and thereafter, out of concerns out of his leadership there, and thereafter his politics became very, very acrid. I choose that word because, as you say, Brian, he took a very different approach to partisan politics than we have seen from most generals of his generation, particularly someone so distinguished in his career. So his role in this administration was always a little strange because he's so bombastic, because he's so ungeneral-like in his partisanship, because he showed a willingness to flirt with the conspiratorial and radical edges of sort of alt-right politics during the campaign, and even once he was tapped to be the top national security advisor to the candidate. So he was an unusual guy from the beginning, but I can't stress enough how strange it is to have him out while we simultaneously have this news tonight from the Washington Post and now confirmed by the New York Times that the White House was advised last month that he had lied about his contacts with the Russian government. And apparently the White House was okay with that. I mean, they didn't seem to be taking any action about it. It wasn't until that advice that they got privately from the Justice Department and the intelligence agencies became publicly reported that they saw it as actionable. They were apparently okay with him serving as national security advisor, knowing that he had lied about contacts with a foreign government, potentially illegal contacts. And that just means that the scandal around Flynn doesn't end with him leaving. It now becomes a question of who knew what about his behavior and his activities inside the administration.